Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I am Mariana and I interview the brightest minds of physical therapy. So if you want to increase your knowledge, start right now by subscribing to this channel, clicking on the bell so you don't miss anything, give us a thumbs up and share with our friends. Today, our guest is Dr. Meredith Castin, and she's going to talk about non-clinical careers. Meredith is a non-clinical career strategist and the founder of the Non-Clinical PT. I hope you enjoy the show. PT Pro Talk podcast is only possible with the support of the forward-looking and innovative company Rangemaster, the most trusted brand for shoulder therapy tools. Available now on Amazon. Hi Meredith, welcome to PT Pro Talk. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And so let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and how did you get to where you are right now?
Sure. The really short version of it is PT was a second career for me. And my first career was graphic and web design. And when I got hurt at the company party, I decided to go be a PT. They were opening a school in my city at the point where I was living, and I landed a scholarship, and it was just one of those things where all the stars kind of aligned and it felt perfect. My sister's a career counselor and she and I talked. She said, that would be a great career for you. And so I do think still that PT would be a great career for me if it didn't have all of the aspects that I'm sure you've heard about over the years, the burnout, the paperwork, the kind of overloading patients and things like that. But anyway, so when I realized that it wasn't the best career for me, I tried to do some other things. I tried to go back to graphic design. My skills were totally obsolete by that point. I tried to do web design. Same thing happened. And so I ended up landing a job. It took a long time. I'm going the short version, but it took a long time. There were like 2 years of heartache and tears and all those things. And I eventually landed a job as a PRN rehab liaison. And around the same time, I started a blog with a coworker of mine for new PTs. And so that's really how things kind of took off as far as my own non-clinical career. But when I was going through all of this, there was just nothing out there. There were no tools. There were no resources. Nobody had written an article on it. And so it just felt very foreign, and it felt like I was very alone. I didn't even feel like I could tell people that it wasn't a good fit for me, because when I did, they would say really rude things. I mean, I understand because a lot of them were my friends and they were ribbing me, but they would say, didn't you realize that this was not a good choice for you? You already had one career. Didn't you realize when you went to PT that maybe touching people or XYZ, like these things weren't the right fit? And I don't know, I felt really dumb. I felt really alone. I felt really embarrassed. And so when I did it, I was really excited when I landed this PRN job as a rehab liaison, and then the blog took off. And so those really were sort of, for me, the two jobs that I had right at the same time were what it took for me to kind of embrace the idea that there were, I guess the fact that it's hard to explain, but I guess in those moments when I was doing that work, our blog was sort of taking off. And so it was called New Grad Physical Therapy. And it's a long story what's going on with it now. It's been it's in another company that's now an eye care company. But anyway, when we were working on this blog, I found that when I would send out these articles to people, to our email list, people would go, hey, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be a writer. I want to do a rehab liaison job. That sounds kind of cool, because I would write articles about what I was doing. And so that was where the seeds were formed as far as the non-clinical PT, because I had all these people reaching out to me through the blog wanting help. And I wanted to help them, but I felt like I didn't know what to tell them or give them. And so they would say, can you point me to a career counselor? Can you point me to someone to help me with my resume? And I was like, literally, I don't know anyone who can, because I have had to do it all myself. And so I remember having a talk with my husband one night, and I said, I just wish I could send all of these people. And when I see all these people, it was a lot of people by that point. I was like, I wish I could send all these people somewhere to get help. And he was like, I think you're that person. And it was kind of liberating. And it was also really terrifying, because it was just basically like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but at the same time, nobody does, and there's nowhere else to send them. So I'm going to have to figure this out. And so that was about 4 years ago. And here we are now. It's October 2017 was when I sort of got serious. Well, that's not true. That's when I started the blog, but it was around April of that year when I got serious about it. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this and make it work, I have to put my all into it. So that was kind of a long, confusing version of it, but that's where it all got started.
Yeah, but I think it's important to talk about these things because I think many PTs feel the same way, and then they don't know what to do about that because at the same time you have this passion to like help other people, but you can do that in other ways, right? So we were talking before, like doing this podcast is non-clinical, and still we are bringing a lot of information, sharing information, helping people, and talking about things that we love. So I had no idea about like what options and possibilities a PT would have to do non-clinical things. So in your opinion, I know you write a lot about that. So what are the options out there like for the PTs that are thinking more about a non-clinical career?
There are so many options. So this is one of those questions where I could talk for about 20 hours on it. So I'm going to go with a really, really, really high level approach and say, you can kind of do anything with your degree. You can even leave healthcare, and the skills that you've built as a clinician are going to be helpful for you. It's just a question of what do you want to do? Now, I find that a lot of people want to go in certain directions. So they want to go into kind of, I'll just say really high level admin, where they want to go into kind of leadership or management or change. They want to make change in the healthcare system. I would lump all of that into admin or leadership management kind of category. You can become a CEO. I know PTs who have become CEOs. You can go into director of operations. If you don't feel like being in those super, super high level jobs, you can also go into regional director of operations, or you can do even jobs like utilization review or the like. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but that one's a really popular one because you can usually work from home. And you can go into then, it looks like you
What is that? Yeah,
sure. Utilization review. That's where you're looking over charts. Basically, this is very simplifying what it is. You're really looking at the utilization of insurance benefits and making sure that it's appropriate. That's technically what it is. But what a lot of the jobs are is you'll be looking at doing some prior authorization or honestly denials. You'll be doing just basically looking at the use of member benefits, using PT visits and saying, is this appropriate? Is this therapist using way too many visits considering the patient has plateaued? Or does it look like maybe this patient is more appropriate for a different level of care? So there's a whole industry around that. It's not for everybody, but a lot of people really love it. And then there's care coordination, there's public health, there's user experience, which falls under the tech umbrella. There is, you can go into, speaking of tech, you could go into robotics, you can go into product management, project management, program management. So there are all of these different ways that you can go. And the key is you're going to end up with some sort of analysis paralysis if you try to just kind of pick one, because there are so many that you can use, or that you can do, I should say, and you can use your skills for all of them. It's just a question of which one is right for you. And it's really, really hard to determine that unless you have entered into your career from day one as a new grad saying, I'm definitely going non-clinical, and you have to be super, super strategic about it. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it when you're not a new grad. I mean, it's very, very possible, but you definitely just want to get a good overview of what's out there. And the most important part is you want to understand what makes you tick and what makes you not want to do patient care anymore. Because I feel like that is the main consideration, is if somebody's thinking of leaving patient care, we all have our reasons for it. And I've heard people say, I'm just not a people person. I don't know what I was thinking going into this career. But then for someone like you or me, I could tell you're a people person. I'm a people person. I love people. I just didn't want to be on all day, touching, moving, lifting, hearing problems, and then having to do all that paperwork all in an 8-hour day. Like, it's just impossible. And so certain people, they say, okay, I just have a hard time with time management. I'm one of those people, I don't do well with time management. So I was never doing well with my productivity. And then you have the people who are like, I love meeting goals. And this stupid 70% productivity goal is like so easy. And I want to go out and just get rewarded for meeting my goals. And so those people want to go into sales. So it's something that you just really need to understand the why behind why you're leaving, and then marry it with the why of what you want to do next. Because if you just know why you're leaving patient care, that's half the problem. But why do you want to go to sales? Or why do you want to go to utilization review? Or why do you want to do care coordination or robotics or whatever you go into? And you have to have a passion for the next step. Because that's another issue I see is a lot of people go into PT because it's a stable career, supposedly. We've learned during COVID it's not so stable. But they go into PT because it's a stable career. They think it's going to pay well. And then they realize, well, when you factor all those loans into it, it's not going to pay that well. And it's not even all that stable when a pandemic hits. So do you want that stability, or do you want that big payout where you just work your butt off? Maybe you go to a little bit more education or schooling, you get a PhD, and then you become a medical science liaison and you make just tons of money. But for some people, they might go, I don't want to travel. So it's just, you have got to find all these different moving parts, and it's not so hard to do that. But I think it's just important to have kind of a structure and a plan and really sit down with yourself and take the time to do it. And that's where I see people kind of spinning out a little bit and going, I don't know what I want to do. Analysis paralysis. I'm never going to get out of patient care. I'm just going to stay here forever.
Yeah, no, I understand that's very overwhelming to a lot of PTs. Having this routine, seeing a lot of patients it's very physical, it's tiring. Sometimes it's mental exhausting as well. But I think that the hard part is like, okay, I'm leaving this financial stability, as you said, and then I'm going to try to do something completely different and new. And then what do you do? Because you also need to live, you need money. So I think that's one of the challenges that the PTs that are thinking about this career face. And it's a hard transition because you're going to have to sacrifice something. So like, how was that transition for you? Like the leave that certainty that you would have your paycheck there and then jump on something completely like different that you probably were not sure how would you like making a living out of that. So how was that experience?
Oh, for me, I went the semiclinical path. Sometimes I call it partial clinical or semiclinical, kind of what you're doing, where I started out blogging. Now, it wasn't my own blog. It was this shared blog with my former coworker. But that to me was the best thing I could have possibly done, is start blogging and start writing, because it gives you a voice. It gives you something to refer to when you do ultimately want to get another career or another job. You can say, check out my blog, check out the way I write, check out how I communicate. This is me. This is my personality. And then you become more than just this person who wants out of patient care and they have to take a chance on you. Instead, you are a person who has, in your case, you have a podcast. You can say, hey, go check out my podcast. You can hear what makes me tick. You can hear how I interact with people. You can see that I have all of these non-clinical skills. We know we have non-clinical skills from the clinical world. We know that my time management is terrible, but we know that we have the ability to juggle multiple priorities and do all these other things, negotiate, we can sell, we can do all these things from our time in patient care. But someone trying to hire us for a job that we've only ever been in the clinic, it's scary. It's a risk for that person. So if you take that semi-clinical route and you start blogging or you make a name for yourself online, then you will have more options. And so I highly recommend that people either do a blog or a video channel or a podcast, really wherever their skills lie. I happen to be one of those people that I just love writing. And I also love search engine optimization. I'm like a total nerd for it. So that's why I ended up going that route. But for you, you clearly have a thing for podcasting. So if someone really likes to talk and communicate, then become a podcaster or become a video YouTuber or become a TikToker. TikTok is a little bit harder because a lot of the people in the hiring roles aren't necessarily going to be watching TikTok, but they could still maybe grab their kid's phone and check you out. it's, you want to be careful about kind of which platform you pick based on what you want to do. If you want to go into like compliance and change management and these kind of higher level roles, then you might want to do a video channel or a blog, because you're going to get some of those more kind of old school people who've been in the industry longer. If you want to go into tech and robotics and that type of thing, or one of those newer industries, you might want to do a podcast or a TikTok channel.
Yeah,
but make
absolutely.
a name for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and all of that involves building an online presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Shameless plug here. I have a course called Therapy Blogging 101. And I built that course with my friend Shanda, who has a website called Pink Oatmeal. She and I both built and monetized websites. And everything we have learned and done wrong and done right is in that course. But shameless plug aside from Therapy Blogging 101, the main thing is you just need to start doing it, because you're going to make mistakes and you're going to write about things that you're like, oh, why did I write about this? This is not even part of my brand. But the fact is, just don't overthink it. Just start doing it, especially when it comes to blogging, because with a blog, you can just really, with any of these channels, you can get rid of an old article if you don't like it and it no longer represents who you are. But if you overthink it and it's that analysis paralysis thing. If you overthink it and then you don't do anything, then that's worse. I mean, just do something. In my case, when I was running new grad physical therapy, I didn't know what to write about, because by that point, I was no longer interested in patient care. I did not care about it. I was not enthusiastic about it. I was no longer reading any sort of journals or being even remotely involved with it. So I just started writing about what I knew, which was resumes and cover letters, because I had learned the hard way how to do that. When I landed my PRN rehab liaison job, it was because my resume was terrible, but I had a contact in the company and she passed my resume to the hiring manager. And the hiring manager said, your resume never even got to me. And I was looking at the thing like, I have all the experience you want. How did this not get through? And that to me was this like, ding, 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 this moment of, I don't know anything about resumes. And so anyway, basically I was writing articles about that for the new grad PT site, because they say, write what you know. And so that's what I always recommend people do when they start blogs, is just write what you know. And, the irony is I've had other people take my blogging course and start writing about leaving patient care. That's what's going to happen, is that you're going to have people that kind of straight up copy you. There's no other way to do it. But I mean, it's okay, because that's what people know, and that's what they're going through, and that's their struggle, and they're going to write about it. And so that's what I recommend people do, is just write about what you're doing, write about what you know, or podcast about it, video, YouTube about it. And then you'll start to refine what your special sauce is. Now, it's not wonderful when people do my special sauce every time when they do it, but I understand that's going to happen. I think there's a lot of people doing this right now. I have heard a lot of people right now podcasting, doing YouTube channels, and they're, Cash PT is a perfect example. You've got about 20 people doing that, at least, probably more. Mobile PT is another one. You get one or two people who start, and then other people are like, oh, I want to do that too. And they kind of rush onto the train. And I'm seeing that happen in the non-clinical space. There are people who do resumes now. There are people who do cover letters. And those are things that weren't there when I started. And I was kind of the one that did everything first, but now other people are doing it. But I kind of look at it like, that's good, because when I started all of this, there was such a stigma. It goes back to the beginning of the story. There was such a stigma against doing all of this, where if I were to tell a professor or I were to tell a coworker or a classmate that I wanted to leave patient care, they were like, oh, why? Oh, this big thing. And now I look at it and I think there is a whole industry around this. And I look at the first person, I believe it was Jared Carter back in the day, Dr. Jared Carter. He was kind of the pioneer, and he was the first one doing, and I might have this all wrong, and I apologize if there's someone else that wasn't him, but back when I was in PT school, he's the one that I knew about, and he was writing about it and blogging and doing videos. And I look at him and I'm going, man, you started an industry. That's so cool. So So even that would be my other piece of advice for someone is even if you start doing something and then someone else hops on and starts copying you, don't let it get to you. Just keep showing up and keep doing your thing, because you still might start an industry, or you might inspire someone else to do something, and maybe you two will team up and do it better. It's really cool what happens when you put yourself out there and you just start talking or writing or filming videos, whatever it is that you're good at, because there are a lot of ways to find your tribe. And that's one of the ways to find your tribe. I found a lot of people from blogging, and the vast majority of people I met that way have been just phenomenal humans. And I met Shanda that way, the one that I did the blogging course with. I featured her on my website. That's the other bit of advice I was going to say, because I believe you were saying, how does someone build a brand? So in my case, I did exactly what you're doing. I talked to other people, because when you don't know, so when Nick said you're going to have to be that person, you're going to have to figure this out and be that person for people, because nobody else exists doing this. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I started talking to other people who did. And it's exactly what the best podcasters do, is they say, okay, well, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do in XYZ, but I'm going to go find people who've done it and I'm going to talk to them. And so that's another way to get your start, is if you know for fact, I always tell people, if you know for a fact you want to go into compliance or you want to go into tech. A good friend of mine, she knew she wanted to go into robotics. That was her passion. And so she started blogging about robotics and writing articles and going to robotics meetups. And she plugged away at this for like a year plus. And now she's a clinical project manager at a really big robotics company up in San Francisco. And I mean, it took some work. She worked at a startup. It was hard. She grinded, but it happened. It worked out. And so you just never know what's going to happen if you just show up and you make those contacts. You just meet people. And one other thing is, you don't have to meet people just in the PT industry. In fact, I would say get out of the PT industry, meet nurses. If you want to stay in healthcare, meet nurses, meet physicians. If you don't want to stay in the industry and you want to go into tech, go meet people who are already doing product design, meet people who are doing software engineering. If you want to do that, you can do anything you want. It's just, and you don't need permission. That's the other thing. You do not need anybody's permission.
Yeah. So I got some notes here. First point, the perfect. I think people just have this fear and they want to make sure that's perfect before they put themselves out there. So that's another thing that happened to me when I started the podcast. I was like, oh my God, my accent, that was the worst thing that I could pick to do. But something was telling me like deep down, like, I want to do this. I want to meet other like very brilliant PTs, awesome professionals that I look up to, that I admire, that I'll have a chance to connect. So that got me excited. I was like, wow, it is what it is. That's my accent and that's it. I'm going to do it. So I think you just need to stop being so afraid and just start doing it and see what happens, because what's the worst that's going to happen? You're not going to please everybody. Some people are not going to like you anyways.
Right.
So, and you're just not doing it because you're afraid. Just take the chance and try something different and see what happens. Right.
Oh, yes. I read something so interesting. I wish I could remember who wrote it so I could attribute it to that person, but someone had said recently, when you hear an accent, it's basically a sign that somebody is brave and they're bold and they learn quickly and they're resilient. It's all of those things that, imagine someone to leave I was just talking to my husband about this last night, just to leave your home country and go live somewhere where you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you really are completely a fish out of water. And then you just do it anyway and you make yourself at home. When I hear someone who has an accent, that's what I think. I think that person is super, super brave and strong and can land on their feet, and they're adaptable and they're resilient. And that is, I think, something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize when they come in with the accent. You don't necessarily realize that that's what it means to the people living here. I mean, I've never left I've traveled, but I've never lived, I've lived abroad, but it was in an English speaking country. So that does not count. I have never lived in a country that doesn't speak English as the primary language. And so that to me, I mean, it's like a Wayne's World moment. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. But I think it's so cool when someone does that. And so for me, for you to do something like this, to go on a podcast where it's only your voice, that's all you have is your voice. That to me is so badass. And I love that you did that. So own it. And honestly, no one should ever, 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 ever have anything negative to say for someone who has an accent, because it's just the biggest badge of bravery I can think of. Anyway, off my soapbox.
Yeah, but I appreciate you saying that and the feedback, because that's something that a lot of people don't think this way. So
well, they need to. They're jerks. Let's go change it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
And I think like people like you that are the pioneers in something different, it takes a lot of courage as well. So I think that people have to be brave to start doing something different. So kudos to you. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. And don't ask permission. Yeah, don't ask permission, because no one's going to give it to you. So you just have to do it.
And if it's something different that nobody ever did before, people are not going to think it's a great idea, or not going to like, or is going to create some kind of like weirdness or about it, because it's something that people don't know. So nobody likes what they don't know. It's just the fear of something that it's not there, and you are bringing something new. So and now the question, so how to build and monetize a blog. So how did you did it?
So that is a great question. Honestly, it is, again, it's one of those like 20-hour conversations. But one thing I will say, and this is probably the number one and number two thing to keep in mind when you're building and growing a blog is, one, just show up and help people. Don't make it about making money right away. That my whole philosophy that I took into this, and granted, it was semi-clinical, partial clinical. This is the next step in my journey or whatever, but I had a full-time job when I did launch my blog. I went ahead and left my PRN job because they wouldn't take me full-time. They couldn't hire me full-time. So I went and I just got a full-time job as a content writer. And I didn't even know if my blog was ever going to take off. I knew that people needed it and they wanted it. But I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to make money on this thing. And I don't want to have to worry about that. I don't want that to be haunting me the whole time. I want to just show up and do a good job with my content first and foremost. So get your money together and don't try to monetize something right away. Just show up with heart and show up and help people for free. Give them the content they want. Give them the information they want. Give them articles, videos, blogs, whatever you're doing, and just show up for them. And then make sure you're solving a problem, because I have heard so many people launch blogs that they think are solving a problem, but they're just not. Like, oh, well, I know it when I was this person, I had this problem. So everybody must have this problem. And then they do this blog and it's like, no, it turns out it was really kind of just your problem. And not to be insensitive, but it was like, it's such a specific little thing, or it's a problem that's already been solved, or it's something that no one's going to pay you to solve. So the problem is a lot of the easier problems to solve, or one that's just going to be solved by, I don't know, something simple, is no one's ever going to pay you to solve that problem. You need to show up and fix a problem that is so big that no one has even tried to solve it before. And this is not for everybody. If you just want to have a blog and make a little bit of money off of it, you don't have to do this big, lofty thing that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about if you want to have it be your full-time living. My husband now works with me, so it's our full-time living. And so if you want it to be that, if you want to have a blog that is so monetized that it is your stable income, then it needs to be a problem that is so big and so hairy that no one else is willing to touch that problem. And I've seen other people try and not be able to fix it. I've seen people try it with the wellness industry. Because there's so many questions around the wellness industry, and where does our licensure start and where does our licensure stop? And at one point, are you delivering PT versus wellness services? Those are questions that need to be answered. And the problem is they're very gray areas. But if you want to be that person and you want to be the one who knows it and the expert, you have to go out and find the answers to those questions. And it might take you years until you make money off of it. but it can happen. And I'm sitting here giving away all my $1 million business ideas, but one thing here is a big problem that I found is I want a centralized licensure hub, where what I mean is not the PT Compact. I'm talking about, oh God, I said it wrong. I'm sorry. A centralized hub to get CEUs approved. There used to be one run by the APTA, and it just kind of, or FSBPT, I forget how you said it, but they were running some sort of online portal where you could upload your course and pay them a bunch of money, and then they would submit it to like all 50 states and you would get licensed. And then it tanked. It never worked out. They closed it. So if someone could come up with a better version of that, they would make so much money, because there are people like me out there who are like, how do I get my course approved for CEUs without spending all year applying separately to all 50 states or that kind of thing? So there are all these different things you can do. This is a hairy problem, big, hairy, ugly problem that nobody has solved yet. And if you could step up and solve it, maybe it's through technology, maybe you just assemble a team of people to do it. People will pay you to do that. I will pay someone good money to do that. But the problem is you see a lot of people will start a blog and they're like, oh, well, I had a hard time staying fit when I was a young mom and trying to be a PT at the same time. And it's a great idea. But the thing is, there are a million people doing it. And are people actually going to pay you to do it? Or are they going to go buy like a tonal, or are they going to buy a home fitness gym? And so that's where I mean, like, find a really good problem and solve it. And so those are really my two big pointers for anybody starting a business that they want to truly, 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 truly monetize and make their stable full-time income. Now, full disclaimer though, I mean, I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I started, but that's why I had that full-time job, because I was like, I don't want money to be why I'm doing this. I want it to be because I want to help people and I want to figure this thing out. And if I screw it up and if I can't figure out the answers to these problems, then no harm, no foul. Nobody has paid me money. Nobody has, you know what I mean? I'm not letting anybody down excuse my language, if I fuck this up. I'm not letting anybody down. There was no money to be had at that point. And it was only when I sort of hit the point where I was like, I am learning so much stuff and I just need to put this into a spot where everybody can access it. And that's my Non-Clinical 101 course. It was only when I hit the point where I was like, I have a real product I can offer here, and it is truly going to help people. And I 100,000% believe that anybody who takes this course will be successful. That's when I felt like, okay, this is a business. This is something that I can stand behind. And I don't know, like, you can definitely monetize a blog by doing affiliate marketing and selling other people's products. And you can monetize a blog. We talk about all of this in Therapy Blog 101. You can monetize a blog through selling products, through selling your services. You can basically be a coach or a mentor, all of these things. And all of these are very effective methods. But until you feel like whatever you're selling truly, 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 truly solves somebody's problem, then just do it do it because you love doing it, and just show up and have your full-time job that's paying your bills. There might be people who disagree with me, but the people I know who've done it and who've monetized their blogs and who are super successful with it, they all took that same philosophy. They just said, I'm not doing this to make money, and I'm not going to make this my full-time thing until I'm so crazy confident that everything I have on this website is so good that no one could ever come back and be like, I didn't really like it. Then that's when it becomes your thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you have to have like a very good vision of something that you think I think that's the hard part, because as you said, people think like, oh, I had this problem, so I'll help other people as well that may have the same problem, but it's not like a big enough of a problem to become like a thing and people really pay money. Yes. So the way you monetize is creating these courses with all the content and everything that you learned through all these years, and then selling the course through your page and offering the blogs and all of that. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. Non-Clinical 101 is my main revenue stream, but I also sell crash courses. So if somebody said, I really want to go into utilization review, I know for a fact I want to do that, then I have a smaller, it's basically just a crash course, a really contained, smaller version of what you would get in a big course. And I have that for, I think, maybe 8 or 10 of the 25 career paths that we cover in Non-Clinical 101. When I say 25 career paths, each career path usually has 4 or 5, maybe more jobs that come off of that. So it really ends up being about 100 different jobs we cover. It's just that I've tried to make it a little bit more, I should say less overwhelming by putting it into 25 career paths. So for example, we do public health for one of the career paths, but then you're going to see several different types of directions you can go within public health. Or I do tech. And so within tech, you'll see, oh yeah, you can go into product design, or, oh, you can go into, sorry, I'm spacing on tech for a second, but you can go into tech and you can take different directions within tech. And then for product management, project management, and program management, they're all in one individual career path. So it's like each one is going to have a ton of different paths within them. And then I have one on consulting, for example. People really want to go into consulting, and that's another whole side conversation, but consulting is another way to really get your non-clinical career started. But then people go, well, how the hell do I start consulting? And so I have a whole section of the course, and then also a bonus video that goes on top of that goes into consulting. And so that's my main revenue stream. But then Shanda, she's the one that I mentioned earlier. She and I did Therapy Blogging 101, the blogging course together. She did a totally different type of monetizing of her website. But her problem that she was solving, and she didn't even know she was solving it. She was like solving it for herself, because she was working as a school-based therapist, and she was always going, okay, how do I keep these kids active during their brain breaks when they get up and they move around the classroom? How do I keep them active and engaged and get them building their muscles at the same time and using mobility? And so she created all these different fun kind of kids yoga cards and kids mobility tricks and games. And so her whole thing is very different from mine. She sells my products that I sell tend to be higher priced, but then I don't need to sell as many of them. She sells volume upon volume of these really low priced kids movement cards. And so she creates the cards, and teachers who need ideas for their kids and then school-based therapists will come in and buy the cards to help them do their treatments. And so again, it's like the monetizing strategy, we go over all the ones that are out there in the course, but which one you pick is going to fit what you end up doing, because it should all come back to the product. Because think about it this way. If you're the person who is going to solve that big, hairy, ugly problem I was talking about with the centralized course CEU submitting platform, your solution isn't going to be any of those. It's either going to be a service or it's going to be a tech platform where you have to build a platform to make this thing happen. And so we can go over all the different ways to monetize under the sun, but at the end of the day, sometimes if you're going to really be that person to solve the problem, it might be a completely new type of monetizing that we don't even talk about because it just simply doesn't exist yet. It's a platform, and you need to team up with a software engineer to make it happen, or you need to go learn coding. That's probably why nobody's ever solved that problem, because I try not to poop on the one that used to be out there, but when I looked into it, it was crazy expensive. And from what I heard, it wasn't very good. And so I think what has to happen is it needs to happen outside of the PT industry, in the sense that we know how it is. Whenever there's a big company like a giant hospital or the APTA or anything, by the time it gets to where you need it to be, it's already out of date. And so it's just the nature of a big organization. It's not saying anything negative. It's just, and so if someone's going to make this work, I think it needs to be 1 or 2 people, or maybe a team of people, but it needs to be small and nimble and really just adapting quickly to people's needs, rather than a big industry that's like, oh, well, we already built it and people are complaining, but it needs to go through like 9 levels of approval before we can make this small change. It just needs to be a totally different approach. And I'm rambling a little bit and obsessing over this one idea, I realize. But honestly, it's because I think this is what people need to be doing if they want to monetize and become well off from a website or from an online presence. You have to think so crazy big that you're doing something that nobody else wants to touch, because they're like, how the hell do I do that? But you have to be the one that's like, I'm going to figure it out. And I know there are probably people listening to your podcast that are like, oh, I could figure that out, or they could figure out another problem that we haven't even touched on, because there are a million problems out there. It's just, I don't want to touch productivity. I don't want to touch, there are all these problems we have in our industry and outside of our industry. I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, you're giving a lot of ideas here. Maybe someone come up with something, Yeah,
I mean, please take these ideas. You can make a lot of money and you can be very successful and help people all at the same time, which I feel like that's what most of us really want at the end of the day, is like, I know that, I'm not going to lie, income is important to people, especially coming out of PT school. Those of us who have had loans, or even if you don't have loans, it's like you want to make money, right? Like you want to provide for either a family or yourself or you and your spouse. Like I think that money is one of those things that we don't want to talk about in the PT industry. And we're always said, oh, our goal is to get people to not come back to us, to never come back again. And I think you can make money and you can also be really, really, really helpful to people. And that's kind of the dream, is that you're doing well financially and you're also helping people. And that's, I think, why I think there's just so much opportunity in the non-clinical world to do that. You can be so helpful to people and really change their lives. Again, I keep coming back to tech with robotics and things like that. But if you go into the tech space, there is so much opportunity there. And you can work as a clinical program manager or a clinical trainer. The reason I spaced earlier is I was like, oh yeah, duh, that's because that's the career path that basically touches all the other career paths, because you can be a clinical trainer, which is one of the career paths, and you can work in tech, or you can be a product manager and you can work in tech, and you can be in compliance, which is one of the other career paths, and you can work in tech, because tech is just so big right now. And you can make so much of an impact on people's lives if you go into that industry. And it's just, then you're also making a lot of money. And this is my soapbox about money too. I've had a very interesting upbringing with money, and just my relationship with it has evolved a lot over the years. I was raised super frugal. We were very, 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 very careful with money in my family. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that money just gives you so much freedom to do what you want. You can donate to causes that you care about. You can support, if you have a friend whose child wants to go to college and they can't afford it, you can do things like that. You just have so much opportunity to provide for people and do nice things if you have that money. And I think a lot of therapists never believe that we can ever get to that point, because we went into it not for the money. We're always said, okay, you didn't go into PT for the money. But doesn't everybody deserve the opportunity to be well off and live a good life? And one person being well off doesn't mean that someone else can't be well off. And so I know I'm getting kind of philosophical here, but it's really important. It's an important message that I want to share with people, is that I think if you want to make money and you want to be well off, it doesn't make you a tyrant. It doesn't make you a jerk. It doesn't make you a sellout. It doesn't make you a bad PT, because nobody even knows what you're going to end up doing with your money. You could be doing, I don't know. My husband and I, our dream is to be super, super, super charitable in our old age. And so that's like, people don't know what you're going to do with all of those things. Right. And so if you have that dream, and part of that is to be really well off, and you want to send your own kids to college, or you want to do, even if you don't want to be charitable, whose business is that but yours? And so I just feel like there is a bit of a stigma in our industry against making money and against being well off. And I really don't think that that's healthy for us as clinicians, because we're really, if you think about it, probably the only industry where people say, well, you didn't go into this to get rich, but then you spend so much money going into it. Because there are all sorts of other jobs you can take. You can be a CNA, you can be a respiratory therapist. But the thing is, you're not going into 6 figures of debt to get there. So it feels very unfair to tell people, you didn't become a PT to get rich. And then if you do try to make money, we're going to shame you for it and make you feel like you're a sellout. So anyway, people, that's my soapbox. If you want to make money, don't feel bad. It's okay. You can still help people with that money if you want to. And sorry, I just jolted because my alerts turned off. I saw you jolt when I jolted. I had myself on do not disturb, and then I got a really loud DND. So that means we've been going for an hour, but just ignore me.
So, just complementing what you're saying, I think a lot of PTs, they don't think about these options because they have to partner with other industries because they don't have the tech knowledge. So that's another thing that I think prevents us from doing something because you don't have the knowledge. So we have to go and find ways to get this piece that's missing and partner with other people, right? Mm-hmm. And we need people in our areas, people that like, they are from the PT world, but as you said, they have interest in on being on the tech and partnering. You're going to say something.
Nope. I'm just turning my DND, my do not disturb back on because it keeps doing stuff in my ear. Continue.
And then just to finalize, I'm talking about the course that you offer. So you pretty much outline different career paths that you give people an idea what are the options that they have, and then you give some advice on like how to get in the industry, how to being present, how to start making money, all of these things in relation to the career path you think it's the right one for you.
Yes. So I call it the flagship course. It's Non-Clinical 101. This course took me a couple of years to put together, and it is my magnum opus as far as I cannot think of anything else that it needs. But once in a while, if it does need something, I add a bonus video. It is all 25 career paths. And like I was saying earlier, each path has multiple job offshoots of that. And we discuss in detail what you need to get into each one. So it's basically the skills you're going to need, the education you're going to need, just kind of what you need on your resume, what type of things you need to write in a cover letter, but it also comes with a sample resume or cover letter, usually 2 for each career path. So I'll take 2 of the jobs within that career bucket and I'll do a sample resume and a sample cover letter. And they're both editable so that you can take them and kind of work with those templates. They're friendly for the resume software so that you're not going to get blocked like I did that one time. Anyway, back to my old story of my resume not getting through. But it's computer friendly resumes, and then you can plug in your own information and you can take the ideas from each resume and kind of tweak them to your own needs. So we have 25 of those, but then for the crash courses, each of those career paths is what the crash courses are. But then for the crash courses, you also have a usually around 15-page interview prep packet. So it walks you through a sample interview process and then how to answer questions and what to ask to learn more about different jobs. So it's super, super comprehensive. But the thing is, that's only step 2. So step 1 of the course, we start really big picture and we talk about you and do a lot of exploration exercises so that you can discover, why am I leaving patient care? What am I running toward? What are my life goals? Because I am a strong proponent that you should never work. You should never live to work. You should work to live. Your job should support your life. And some people love working, and so their life is work, and that's fine. But the vast majority of us, we want to work so that we can live. We want to have whatever we want to do, whether it's families or communities or just adventure, solo travel, that type of thing. And so whatever your priorities are in life, whether they're travel, their money, their flexibility, their family, their giving back, kindness, service, those types of things, church, family, community, all those things, you identify all of those values. And then step 2 matches basically the career paths, those 25 career paths, to your values. So I get really excited when I talk about it, but I think it's so cool because you can really find out what makes you tick and then just match to the different careers based on what your interests and passions are. So it gets rid of a lot of that analysis paralysis. Because if you don't know those things about yourself, you could be like, sales sounds really cool. You're going to make a lot of money. Medical science liaison sounds really cool. You get to travel a lot and make a lot of money. And it's like, but if you know for a fact that you don't like flying, why would you even choose those careers? And so it just gets down into the nitty gritty. And then step 3 is where we get into taking all of the things that we talked about in steps 1 and 2, and then using those resume templates in step 2 and going, how do I make my resume for me? And it talks about networking as well, and finding jobs and creating a resume, and who do you connect with to network with people? Who do you need to talk to? And then the last step is the interviewing and negotiation phase, because that's one of the hardest things for us to do, is to go out and show up confidently and interview saying, I have never held a job like this in my life, but I'm going to be the best candidate of all the people you're interviewing. So we talk about all the secrets to standing out in the interview process, and then how to negotiate a rate that works for you, because that's the other thing we're not great at doing. Because as you know, a lot of times when you're hired, it's like, this is the rate, take it or leave it. And that is not how the non-clinical world works. So we talk about how to negotiate when you don't have experience directly in that career path. And so I'm super proud of this course. It has helped so many people get non-clinical jobs. I hear from people all the time, hey, another success story. And so that's why I feel like, okay, I'm living the dream, because I get to have a business where I do well financially. I'm able to live the life that I want, but I'm also helping people achieve their dreams. And it is truly a dream come true. And so any of you who have a dream and you're like, I feel like this problem is something crazy and hairy, but I want to try and solve it, I think you can do it.
Yeah, and then you just can have all the guidance you need. I think it's awesome that you are giving this to people, supporting people, because it's something that we don't even know how to get started. You have an idea, and then you get lost in your thoughts, and then you don't know what to do, how to act, who do you need to talk to, what do you need to develop. So I think that's all super important, to just give this guidance to people. So
thank you.
Helping a lot of people that are lost out there.
Yeah. Well, that was the goal with all of this. I always said, start with a mission. And I actually learned this from the full-time job where I was working. They had a saying called principle over profit. And that was always my feeling, was like, if I ever hit the point where I'm valuing money over the mission, then I need to take a really big step back and ask myself some serious questions about where I went wrong. Because my philosophy is always, I don't want people to feel alone. I want people to feel supported. I want to over deliver, and I want people to have a community and a feeling of hope when it comes to their careers. I want them to feel hope when they come to my site and when they buy my course, and feel inspired and feel excited about their life and their career again. And so if that ever stops happening and it only just becomes about money, then I've got a real problem on my hands. And so hopefully that continues to deliver, and people still continue to feel excited and inspired by what I put out. And if that ever changes, I want you to call me on it too, Rihanna. Just tell me, because that is my goal, is just to inspire people and help them give them what I never had when I was in their shoes, when I felt like stupid and alone and dirty and just bad for wanting to leave patient care. I never want anyone to ever feel that again.
Yeah, awesome. So let's transition to the final questions. What resources of information that you would recommend people?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So resources, I'm probably a little non-traditional because I am not clinical in nature. So my resources, I'll start with the business resources. My favorite business podcast is called Online Marketing Made Easy by Amy Porterfield. She is awesome. She breaks down so much of what I have learned has been from her podcast, just as far as building your email list and marketing and social media and where to invest your efforts. She's also just I don't know her personally, but she seems like a really nice person. And I vibe with her. She's very patient. I like when people hold my hand and walk me through things one by one. And she's got that sort of approach to things. So highly recommend her podcast. She's phenomenal. And then as far as just free resources, I'm a big fan of just reading for pleasure. And so even though some of my favorite business books, I can tell you one is Building a Story Brand, is really good for marketing and setting up your website. But I love the Fayetteville Public Library where I live. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I moved here recently from San Diego, and people are like, what? But I love it here. It's great. And Fayetteville has such a wonderful public library. We are a really, really progressive city with a lot of diversity and pretty awesome initiatives that people would never think come out of Arkansas. And so I would consider us kind of the Austin of Arkansas. And our public library is phenomenal. So I go there a lot, and I during COVID, I've been using their online service, but they're really good. They have good mask compliance and everything. So I'll go there too and check out books sometimes. And I really encourage people, find a good public library and just read for pleasure, because you're more than your job. You're more than the fact that you're a physical therapist. And if you're running a business, you're more than that business too. So don't forget to just read for pleasure sometimes. And, you know, I'm a big fan of true crime. So I read a lot of true crime books. And so those are probably my favorite resources: Building a Story Brand, Amy Porterfield's Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. And as far as for people changing careers, I don't know. There's one book that I read a long time ago called The Slight Edge. And I have to say, the author is almost a little bit smug at times, and that is kind of annoying. But at the same time, his message is so good. And his message is just every single day, do just a little bit toward your goal. So if you have this big, crazy, lofty idea, you might look at someone and be like, oh, they did this overnight, and they're just like one of those weird success stories. But the reality is, I was grinding for a long time, and I was working my full-time job, and then I would be coming home and writing blog posts for my website. And then on the weekends, I was answering emails. And I mean, I've been having my blog for 4 years now, and I'm only now to the point where I'm like, okay, I take weekends and holidays, and I probably work about 4 days per week. And, you know, it's like definitely taken me some time to get here. And that time was, I was working all the holidays, all the weekends. All my friends were going off and having Palm Springs weekends. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to work on my website again. And so there's just, take things one step at a time. And The Slight Edge is one of those books that reminds you that everything is just one tiny little piece. And even if your one tiny little piece that you do that day is just reading or listening to an episode of Online Marketing Made Easy, you're doing that much more than 99% of the population who is just off getting a craft beer. Not that I blame them, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, and I think just people don't realize that takes a lot of sacrifice and work and time to build something. So it's not going to be overnight. And then when they see someone successful, it's like, oh, that was easy for her, but it's not easy for me. You know, it just takes time. Things to happen. They require sacrifice and time and work. Yes. And so.
Amen to that.
And what would be the best advice that you give to clinicians that are starting their career? So I usually say clinicians, so we can kind of switch this to non-clinicians that are starting their careers, trying to grow their non-clinician skills.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I think this is such a good question, because really, I think for anybody starting out, first of all, just take the approach of anything is possible. And I hate to say it, but like in a positive and a negative way. You don't know what life is going to bring you. You might love clinical care and be like, I'm going to be that lady who treats until I'm 80. And then, God forbid, but something might happen and you can't physically or emotionally, you can't do it anymore. And so, or you might think when you're getting out of school, I'm going to go non-clinical within 1 year, and you might start treating patients and be like, this is so much better than school, and I love this. So you just can't predict the future. So go in with an open mind when you start your career. And you might feel like you're behind the 8 ball if you graduate a certain year. Oh, you know, this was during COVID and there are no job opportunities out there. Whatever you do, you can turn it around. You can always we used to hear this thing in school. If you want to go into peds, you better get a peds job, your very first job, or you're never going to be able to break in. Like, what the hell? Who says that to their students? But we would hear that from professors. And it's very scary. But the fact of the matter is, you can do whatever the heck you want. You really can. You might have to move. You might have to change your mentality. You might have to take a pay cut. You might have to get creative. But if there's anything that COVID has taught all of us, it's that you can move. It's going to be okay. You can change. Like, people are making these major life moves, and it's okay. Things are turning out just fine. If you had told me a year ago I was going to live, a year ago, if you had told me I was going to live in Arkansas, I would have been like, what the hell are you talking about? But I mean, we ended up moving. It's just, we wanted to be closer to my parents. And so it's just, it's one of those things where like, you never know how much you're going to love something if you don't try it and you don't keep an open mind. And so when it comes to the non-clinical world, if you start your career thinking anything is possible and you say yes to opportunities, as long as they're not going to destroy your mental health or really burn you out, you just never know. Your boss might want you to help with the schedule, and you might be like, I love this. I'm an organized person. Maybe I'll go into operations. Or you might, your boss might say, hey, can you help me with credentialing this month while the census is low? I need to make sure everybody's up to date. And you might go, I love this. Maybe I'll go into compliance. And so you just never know if you say no to things and you close your mind to different opportunities. So as a new grad, just go in with an open mind and think literally anything is possible. And you just never know what the future is going to hold. But if you take that mentality of bloom where you're planted, you're probably going to be in good shape, because you can make anything work for you, and you can take a lot of skills out of any job you take, even if it's the most dead end, low paying PRN type of job. Well, okay, that shows that you're adaptable. I know people who they're like, oh, I had to start with registry when I first graduated. Had to, you got to. Registry is so cool. You learn adaptability, you learn flexibility, and you learn all these different settings all at once. You learn different documentation systems. So just take the mentality that you can take what you're doing and learn anything from it.
And maybe at some point you're going to use all of the skills that you never thought that you would use. So,
yes, amen. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And what personal qualities or abilities that you think are important to become a successful PT?
To become a successful PT, clinically speaking, I do think resilience is huge. Well, I think resilience is important in any career, honestly. And
so let's say clinical and non-clinical then.
Yeah.
Since you're talking a lot of non-clinical here. Yeah.
I'm going to take the easy answer and say that resilience, honestly, is probably one of the best qualities you can have in clinical careers or non-clinical careers, and just in life. I'm officially middle-aged right now. And honestly, if there's one thing middle-aged has shown me, it's that you can really take things that happen and you can become a victim, or you can really take them and roll with them and take good things from them. And you can also be raised in a type of way that teaches you to think some way. But if you can challenge yourself and think differently about the world, then you're in good shape. Just being able to see multiple points of view, that also helps in patient care and in real life, especially now we're dealing with COVID. People are super divided on how to approach everything. The world is so divided right now. So if you can be a resilient person and you can look at multiple points of view and understand where somebody is coming from, even if you don't agree with them, you're in much better shape than someone who's going to be super rigid with their views. And I might really disagree with someone on something, but I still like to challenge myself to at least understand why they feel a certain way, because at the end of the day, it's usually not that they're a bad person. It's usually that they just were raised a certain way, or they just are used to thinking a certain way. And it's okay. You can still find common ground with them and perhaps make something really big and important happen. So I think resilience just in general in life, in your career, super, super important. And I don't know, I've never read any books on resilience, but I'm sure they're out there, and I'm sure there are podcasts about it. We live in such a beautiful information age where you can find anything. Yeah, exactly. You can go out and get radicalized on the internet, or you can learn how to be resilient. I would pick how to become resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people that want to find you, your website or your contact information, how they can find you.
Sure. Just go to the Nonclinicalpt, all one word, .com, the Nonclinicalpt. Or you can find me. I'm on Facebook. I've got a free Facebook group. If you just put non-clinical networking into the Facebook search group, there's a networking group that you can join for free. And there's like 21,000 plus people in there. And all of them are either non-clinical or hoping to go non-clinical. And I keep it on a tight leash. No multi-level marketing allowed. It's just very much on topic. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about careers. And so if that's your thing, definitely join, and you will meet a lot of like-minded people in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us, for your time and giving some ideas here of opportunities and possibilities for people that are kind of burnout or tired of the clinical PT world. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun, and you are an excellent podcast host. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you.